Welcome to Shell's After Dark Archives, the podcast where the veil between the known and the unknown is lifted. I'm your host Shell, and I'm here to guide you through the shadows of the supernatural. Here, we dive into chilling stories, unexplained mysteries, and real-life encounters with the paranormal. But this isn't just about storytelling, it's about the people behind the experiences. From ghost hunters to psychic mediums, UFO researchers to cryptid trackers, I'll be sitting down with those who dare to explore the strange and unusual. So, whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or just curious, get ready to embrace the unknown.
Turn off the lights, settle in, and prepare to journey into the After Dark Archives.
Hello and welcome to the new segment of Shell Spooky Stories, which is called the After Dark Archives. And today I have my first guest, the legend, the wonderful Tommy Cullum.
Oh,
Let's Get Freaky podcast.
thank you.
Thank you for being here.
No, thank you. It's an honour. I'm first guest. I'm honoured. Thank you very much.
Well,
that is a huge honour.
Who to have on, and there was no one else that I could. Well, I can't really say that because everyone else will come for me. But I thought you were the first person to probably interview me in this thing. So I thought,
I appreciate that. Thank you. Well, you're going to get a lot of cool guests. I know that for sure. So.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait. I love talking about this stuff. So it's a dream. Dream job. So we'll start with a simple question. How did you get started on all this?
Oh, well, I've always been hugely fascinated with all the paranormal. Since day one. Since I can remember, I've been fascinated with ghosts, aliens, cryptids. Like I've always had that fascination. I've always been a bit scared of it as well. Like as a kid, I've always been scared of the dark. I've had experiences, as you know, as a kid, but even before, like I had like big experiences, I was just scared. So I've always felt like there was something there, and I've just been fascinated by it. Even though it scares me, I get a little excitement when I talk about it. I don't know I can talk about it all day. When I meet people for the first time, it's one of the first questions I ask. Have you had any paranormal experiences? And you normally get that look like, most people I think have, but you still get that look like, really? We're going to go there? But yeah, I love it. It excites me so much.
Was it because you saw stuff when you were young, or do you think it's because, like, I know for me, it was because I saw things that I didn't understand. But I know for other people that I've spoken to, it's been things like movies or films or books they've read that have then piqued their interest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For me, because I've got so many memories of being really, really young and like waking up at night and feeling like there was something in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I always used to like wake up. I was a terrible sleeper. I still am really. And I'd go into my mum and dad's room, and I had this thing where I would just want to sleep with my mum and dad because I was always scared. Like, and I know a lot of kids are like that. That's not that strange. But I always used to wake up and feel like there was something there. And it wasn't until I was 10 years old when I woke up. My first memory of knowing that there was something there, actually seeing an entity in my room, a ghost in my room. But I always had that fear before that moment anyway. Like I was a bit of a weird kid. I'm still weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a weird kid. I'm still weird now. I'm going to be even weirder when I'm like 18.
Yeah. I remember I was about 5 years old, and this is another memory that I have that goes, one of my first memories of like a possibly paranormal thing. I was about 5 years old, and my mum and dad got married in one of the oldest wooden churches in the world, I think, Greenstead Church. Mm-hmm. I hope I've got the name right, but we used to go there a lot when I was a kid. It was like a special place for us. And I remember being there, and I was about 5 years old, and I never met my nan, one of my nans, my nanny Iris. I never met her, but I had this moment where I was like to my mum and dad, I got all emotional. And it's quite strange for a 5-year-old. And I was like, Nanny's here. And I was like telling my mum and dad like my nan was there, and it was really weird. And I can remember that feeling. I remember what I was feeling at the time. It was very strange, and I guess that was my first sort of. I didn't see her, but I could feel her, and that's pretty weird as a 5-year-old to. And I've still got that. I've still got that memory.
5-year-olds say that, do they?
No, so that's what I mean. I'm a bit strange.
Yeah, I mean, I remember saying to you that I used to go around friends' houses and be like, "Who's that lady in the picture?" And they'd be like, "Oh, it's my nan. She died." And I'm like, "No, she didn't. She was in the doorway."
Yeah,
Getting literally kicked out of the house. Mum being called like, "Your daughter's scaring the shit out of my daughter." Come round, collect her. She's never allowed to sleep over again.
It is wild, but again, it's just in some of us. It's just there. It's just a natural thing.
Yeah. I definitely think that there is a lot of children that have the same thing. I know that my nieces, my niece when she was younger, she always used to talk about the man, and she had a really weird incident with it. She had like My Little Ponies, like the mini ones, and she had this one that I can't even remember the name of it, but that was her favourite. And she used to have it all the time on her. And then one night she said like the man had took it, and we never found it ever again. We searched high and low, and it had just disappeared. And if you go round my sister's house, you'll see footsteps like under the doors. Like, you know, when the light goes through and you can see like people walking under the doors, you'll see that. You'll hear people walking up and down the stairs. She's seen, which, spoiler alert, I'm doing an episode on the Hat Man. She's seen him twice in her house. She's open to it. She pretends that it doesn't exist. But
wow.
Everyone in my house, my family, are all super psychic. And she can't run away from it. It will find her. And I keep telling her, and she's like, "Shut up." But it's coming for her.
Wow, so she's had quite a lot of experiences, but still won't sort of interesting.
Yeah, she's terrified. Like I've just because of how connected my niece is, I've sat with her and done like open up meditation and like trying to get her, because she was really like emotional with it. And she's always been really super sensitive. So I was like, well, if I can help her like control it, meditate, learn about it, that will help. And the first time I did a meditation with her, she was like, boom. She was like, I see my spirit guide. She's given me a crystal. Here's a drawing of, she could see scales, and it was telling her that was her emotion. She was able to like interpret everything. And this is the first time she's ever meditated.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God. My sister was like, stop it, it's freaking me out. Stop it, it's freaking me out. I was like, you don't say that to her, because she's going to think she's weird. And she's going to be even more freaked out than she already is. But I think there are a lot of people that have these experiences, and like, you know, what is it? They want to know more, but they're terrified.
I think some people can switch it off as well. And I think to an extent I can as well. Like, I think I've done that in the past, where you switch this sort of stuff off, and I think that's what most people do, and that's why a lot of people don't have experiences. In my opinion, I think once you start opening up to it and you accept that there's more going on around you, you will start seeing more things happen. And I think you look into the paranormal, it looks back. I keep saying that quite a lot, but that's what I think it happens.
It's so true. I believe that as well. And I think, well, I don't know, for me, I've tried to switch it off loads, but it always comes back to me. It always finds me. I mean, I think I've said to you before, I actually feel like I am sort of followed by ghosts, and that they like, I've been drawn to find this purpose in this like weird paranormal world that we're in. Now I found it. It's like I've never felt more me than ever before. But yeah, I think a lot of people try and run away from it. I'd love to be able to switch it off sometimes, don't get me wrong. Like when I go into a hospital, for example, I have to like imagine sort of a light switch in my head, and like the light being switched off so that I'm not like connected. But even then, you'll be sat in a like corridor or something, and you'll be like, see something, like, or the woman, you know, something's going on with the woman next to you, and you're like, not going to say anything because she's going to think I'm a lunatic and I'm going to end up in a totally different hospital. Yeah, I think that when you do look at it, it definitely looks back. Like the more you go into it, you experience a lot more.
For sure.
And I suppose skeptics probably think it's the hippocampus, isn't it? That when you think of things, it then recognises it and you start to see more of it. I don't know, scientists might come for me now, but I think that's what that part of your brain is called.
Yeah.
You know, when you like really want a red car and all you can see is red cars.
Yeah. A little bit like sometimes with numbers as well, which I've had when you get like a number that you see all the time. You're like, oh, it's that number again. And that can happen. I think there's something to that. I'm not saying that's not a paranormal thing, but it's interesting.
Yeah. I always do that. My husband gets so annoyed with me because I'm always like, ooh, 11:11, like, ooh, 22:22. He's like, ooh, the time.
Yeah. I keep seeing it, and I have for a little while, the number 33. Keep seeing it like constantly, and I didn't want to see it because in the conspiracy world, it's got like some negative connotations to it. So every time I was seeing it, I was like, "Oh no, it's that 33 number again," and and I wasn't liking it, and I was like, "I need to look into what this means." And I looked into it, and apparently it's like an angelic number, and it's a good thing. I don't know, I'm not sure, but I continue to see it. It's weird.
I think when you see numbers, it's all because it's a synchronicity, isn't it? And I think all synchronicities are there for a reason, whether they're good or bad. It's to kind of give you some kind of guidance as to where you're going in the world. Like, I know that when I see like 11:11, I'm always like, oh, you know, that's an angel around or something because it's an angelic number. I mean, I don't really look into numbers too much. Number 13 is my favourite number. I passed my driving test on Friday the 13th.
Oh, wow.
Attempts, so.
Wow. Unlucky for some, but
lucky for me. I think I've like been born into this world because I'm like, 13's lucky for me.
Yeah, it's meant to be. It's meant to 100%. Yeah.
Definitely. So, do you think that as you've got older then, you've started to experience more, or do you think that you kind of had more as a child and now you're kind of... because you're in this world, aren't you? So you must be...
Yeah, I had a lot of experience as a child, and then throughout my life I've had a lot of experiences. I would say probably from my 20s. I don't know if I switched it off a little bit, but I still had experiences. But when I started doing Let's Get Freaky podcast, that is when, I don't know, it just felt like there was just an explosion of experiences, and not even like not always like huge experiences, like just little things would happen, but very regularly. And it was like you'd hear noises and I don't know. As I say, when you look into the paranormal, I think it does look back. I remember I just started the podcast, and I was sitting there one night after work, and I heard someone walk down the stairs. Like someone walked down the stairs. Like it was like I could hear it. Like and I looked at the stairs, expecting to see someone come down, and there was no one there. And I listened. I followed like the noise all the way down, and I was like, and I didn't even get that scared. I was like, what is going on? That this is wild. And just things like that were just happening around me, and shadow figures and things like that. And I do, it's strange, but I love it.
It's funny that you say like that when that happens that you kind of like looked into it. And I was having this thought yesterday because we went to another investigation last night, and I was thinking like, when you hear a noise when you're on a ghost hunt, it's not like when you're in like what you see on the movies or even some like YouTube channels, and you're like, oh my god, and start panicking. You kind of like, well, what's that? And then you start to like think, well, was it this noise? Was it this noise?
Yeah.
Was it me walking on this bit? You know, you start to...
You're trying to debunk it. You're trying to find a reason. Yeah.
But I think the only thing that, I mean, I jumped last night, but that was only because Mike scared the absolute bejesus out of me, because he was crying in the mirror and then just went like, ooh, and jumped back. And I was like, oh my God.
That's the other thing. We're always on edge.
Yeah.
Anything can happen at any time. So we're always on edge. Like I was in the toilet, and I do a lot of my podcast like in the early hours of the morning. UK time. So it's normally around 1 o'clock. And I was in the toilet, sitting on the toilet, and I could hear people talking outside, like outside the toilet. And I'm like, someone's got to be up. And no one's ever up at that time. And I've opened the door, no one's there. And I'm like, oh my gosh. What am I doing? What am I doing? Yeah. It's got to a point recently where I've actually like prayed out loud because I'm like not getting a good feeling from it, and it sort of stopped when I did that, and I think there is power in that. Like the kids were seeing things, the missus was seeing things, and it was getting to a point where the missus was like, "You've got to stop doing this podcast," and I'm like, "No, I'm not." So it is what it is.
Don't stop it. No, there's no way that you should stop. Definitely not.
But
is your house old then, or
no? I don't know exactly how old it is, but it's not particularly old. It's not. No, I mean, I always say with like the house that I grew up in as a kid, that wasn't an old house either, but that was haunted. Yeah. That's where I had a lot of experiences.
Yeah, mine was a new build. Yeah.
I just think I think the paranormal is everywhere. I don't think it's, what was there before. There could be something there, and I don't think that. I think these things can come from anywhere. I don't think that they're stuck in one place. I think some might be, but I do think that it's all around us and they can move around. And I think we invite it in sometimes. So yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, there's been a lot of weird stuff going on in my house recently. The kids both both my youngest saw my eldest, they said, walking in this certain spot of the house.
Right.
And I know it wasn't my eldest. So Amy's 13, and so it wasn't her. I know it wasn't. I know the time that they say that they saw Amy in the house, it wasn't her. So stuff like that was happening, and I was like, oh, the kids are seeing stuff. I need to
doppelganger.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could have been that. Yeah, 100%. It could have been that. So yeah, weird stuff's been going on for sure.
It's always like you don't want it in your own house, do you? I always think, I'd love to buy like a really gothic mansion and like do it up and like have loads of ghosts. And then I was like, I wouldn't want to live there because I'd never get any sleep. And it would be really like I'd be on edge and I wouldn't be able to relax.
Yeah.
But, I don't mind hanging about in them like for the evening and stuff. But yeah, I don't think I'd want to live in one.
You want to be able to switch off from it. But I've woken up, even in this house, I've woken up and it's seen like a shadow figure standing there, like the shape of someone standing there. And it's that's not nice. When you wake up and you see someone there, as you know, that's not nice. A while ago, I woke up and I thought my wife was sitting up crying. So I woke up and I've seen what I thought was my wife sort of crying. And I've got up and I'm like, what's the matter? And I've gone through whatever this thing was, looked down and my wife's just asleep. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Time to go to the States, Tommy.
Yeah. But I wasn't getting a bad feeling from any of the stuff until quite recently. I was getting like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel nice, whatever this is. And that's when it's like, we got to...
Have you researched the land?
Not really. I mean, I've got a big forest behind me, which has got a devil dog law there. So people see a devil dog, which is like a spiritual thing, obviously. But I've had some weird experiences in that forest as well, which are possibly related to it. I don't know if you want to go. I don't even want to go into that. Yeah. So I've been...
I forgot we were on a podcast. I was like, tell me.
Oh, we're recording. Yeah. So I moved. I've been in this house now for 3 years. And when I first moved, we still don't know a lot about the area, to be honest, but I know little bits now. But so when I first started, when we first lived here, so I've always been someone that stays up late. Even before I started doing the podcast, I was a bit of a night owl. I'd watch telly till the early hours of the morning. I've always been like that. And when I first moved, I used to hear like a growling outside the house. And now I'm not saying this is anything to do with a devil dog, but it's weird and it sort of connects. So I'd hear a growling literally as if it was like outside the window. And I didn't know a lot about the area. I know people have got dogs around me. There are dogs and big dogs, whatever. So I'm just thinking it's a big dog. And I used to look outside to try and see it, and I could never see it. Really weird. I know that's quite strange. And then I was talking to someone where I work, and they were telling me about the devil dog law, which is literally just like a 2-minute walk up the road, and you're in the devil dog. There's like a red brick road which leads into the forest, and apparently that's where a lot of people see the devil dog. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I've been hearing this growling outside my house. As soon as I knew about that, that stopped. So that didn't happen anymore after that, which I thought was quite strange. And then what else happened? So I took the kids. I still go into that forest every day, and I took the kids one night for like a late night walk, but it wasn't dark, but it was getting dark, and we was quite far in the forest. And Amy, my eldest, started just freaking out. She's like, "Daddy, I've seen a Bigfoot!" Like, and I know that sounds crazy, like where we are in the UK, but a lot of people do see these things. A lot of people say, and I was sort of like, no, she can't have seen them. She can't have seen that. Like, she's seen one of my documentaries that I watch all the time, and she's freaking herself out. I'm like, what have you seen? She went, I just saw something with like, a big Bigfoot with yellow eyes. And I'm like, really? Okay, let's go. Let's just get out of here. So we left. And this was actually before I knew about the devil dog law as well. So I didn't know about anything to do with the devil dog when this happened. And I got back and I was like, that's weird. Like, what has she seen? And to this day, she still says that she saw that. You know, I ask her all the time. Again, I don't know. You know, she might have just been imagining things. She may have seen something that I've watched on the telly and, you know, freaked herself out. And then, so at this time, I know about the devil dog law. So I'm sort of thinking, I've heard the growling. Amy's seen that. That's a bit weird. And now I've got a puppy. I've got a dog now. And there's been a couple of occasions where I take him over the forest every day. Like every day we go there, different routes. And on a couple of occasions, he has freaked out at nothing. And when I say freaked out, he's a crazy dog. He's a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, full of energy. You know, he's not scared of anything. He runs at balls and people, and he's not scared of other dogs or anything. But on 2 occasions, we've been walking along this forest, and he has stopped, backed up. Something around him is freaking him out. And again, I'm not saying it's a devil dog. It's just weird that it happens. And I sort of have to pick him up and literally move him past that area that he's freaking out in, put him down, and then he's fine again. So I go back and I'm like, what could that have been? Like, what? And I'm looking around, there's nothing there that I know of that's freaking him out. So that's strange. And then there was another time, this is a little bit more recent. I got the girls' bikes and we used to go for bike rides in that forest. And we went down this little route that it sort of breaks off from the forest, and the girls like to ride down this little path, which is it's like I say half a mile, but it might be a bit shorter than that. And they're going down, but I'm watching them. I can see them, and all of a sudden I see this I think it's a big dog at the end of the route, and I'm like, that's a big dog. It's like a greyish colour. And then I see the girls stop. They've seen it as well. Immediately turn around and start like racing back to me. Like they're scared of this dog. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. Ruby, my middle girl, she fell over off her bike. So I've ran down to her, picked her up, looked up, this thing's gone. So I'm thinking, okay, the owner's called it away. Like it's a big dog. I'm not thinking anything else. I'm thinking, is it a fox maybe? Like, I don't know. I've asked the girls what they've seen, and they're like, it was like a wolf. And I'm like, okay, that's sort of, it's weird. I'm not saying it is the devil dog. But again, it's just another weird. Yeah. Yeah. So we've possibly had some experiences with the local devil dog, which I didn't know anything about until I moved here.
It's quite fascinating, isn't it? Like, I never knew anything about the woods like you. I've always had, when I lived there for like 25 years, we had a wood behind it, and it was called Ghost Hill Woods. As I say, ghosts follow me. I might as well have lived on like Haunted Lane at Ghost Hill Woods or something.
Yeah.
But in that woods, I was always drawn to it, and I never knew anything about it until I researched it later on, and it was like people used to say that they used to hear like the Saxons fighting in there, and you could hear the metal clanging of the swords and all sorts of things. And about pilots and all loads of things. And I was like, I never knew any of this growing up. I just was hanging out there having these weird experiences.
Yeah.
And it's only when you're older and you're like, okay, I wasn't that weird, because other people have seen it and heard it, and now it all makes sense as to why our house was so active, because we were literally on top of this like burial ground for
Yeah.
all this history. It's weird. The land holds so much energy and so much
100%.
history.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
And that's why I think like every forest, every house, pretty much, it's all got something. There's something everywhere. This stuff is everywhere.
Yeah, massively. I was doing a spirit talker session with my haunted doll actually the other day, and it started to say really weird things about the land. And I'd said that I only wanted to communicate with her, but whoever it was very persistent. And it was like, I'm buried here, all this. And I was like, oh, great. I'm just some flipping haunted land. Bloody typical.
Yeah, what's the chances?
But it would make sense because it was all like farmland. And this was a farmer's land that was sold. It's near a public walkway. It's near some woods. It's near the sea. There's bound to have been stuff happening at some point.
Well, you think, especially in the UK, like there must be wild stuff has happened everywhere. And there's got to be. There's going to be history to everything. So there's even before that church was there or that house was there was something happened there.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. We just had our garden done, and I was like, when they were digging, they were like, "Oh, we found some things." I was like, "Come on, those." I was like slightly excited, but I was like, "Oh, it was like a measuring tape that they used, like builders," and I was like,
"Dig deeper, dig deeper."
Find some coins or something. I don't know, message in the bottle or something. I've been really excited by things like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So you had all these experiences. When was the defining point that you actually decided to do the podcast?
Oh, I've always wanted to do it. I've always I've always wanted since I started listening to podcasts, which was probably 7 years ago, something like that. It's just that it might be longer than that. It's probably longer than that. Say 10 years, whatever. I started listening to podcasts, and then it wasn't long before I found the paranormal stuff, and I was like, yeah, this is the stuff I really like. And I always wanted to do it, and it wasn't until I would say 2020, which was a wild year for everyone, where we got locked away. And I sort of, it was always like a dream to do the podcast, but it was always something that I was like, I'll start that soon. I'll do that soon. Yeah. And then when 2020 happened, and I did have a job as well that was a lot of hours and took up quite a lot of time. But when 2020 came and we was like locked away, and I was like, all of a sudden you didn't have tomorrow. Like tomorrow was like, you've got to do this now. So we lived in Essex, and we talked about moving to Dorset, which is what we really wanted to do. And then as soon as we were free again, and we were like, okay, and we didn't do it straight away, but we moved to a new area, different jobs. And I was like, I'm going to start the podcast. And then we was here for about, 6 months. And I was like, okay, time to do the podcast. And I was always worried about the technology side of it and like the editing and things like that. And I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing with that sort of stuff. And then I was listening to a podcast. I'll tell you which one it was. It was Tim Foyle's hat. It was Sam Tripoli talking, and he was talking, and he said he was talking about starting podcast. He was like, if you want to start a podcast, do it today. Just do it right now. Start building. And for me, that was like, he's right.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to start now. And I just started doing it, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And still don't really know what I'm doing, to be honest. And I just and that was it. And I just literally started. I got myself a mic, and just started working on it. And that was it. And I still don't really know what I'm doing, as I say, but
I think we we all know that you've started to know what you're doing, Tommy.
But I love it. I just can't imagine not doing it now. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's become like, I won't say my life, it's not everything, but it's like, it's a big part of my life. And I do love it. I do love doing it.
Therapy as well, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Realising that you're not as strange as you thought you were.
No, we're all weird a little bit. Yeah. There's a lot of us out there.
Big community.
But that's the thing as well. So you start doing something like this, like, as you know, and then you start meeting like-minded people, and like you find your tribe. Like you put out your vibe, you find your tribe, and then you start meeting loads of people. And most people are interested in the paranormal, even like people that are not like us, that are like obsessed with it. You talk to someone that doesn't listen to podcasts or is that interested. They've normally got a story to tell, and they're normally quite interested as well. We all want to know what's going on.
Oh yeah, we had an actual experience like that last night. So we went to we used to go to this place called the Bead in Amble, and that was like a regular spot. Carol, who owned it, she was happy for us to like go in and do our thing every now and again. When she didn't have it open as a pub, and she's just taken over somewhere else. So it was she hasn't even opened it to the public yet. So we were like the first ones in there. And we were waiting outside, and we had like all our bags with us and stuff. So we probably looked a bit weird, all in black hoodies with the devil on the back and all the rest of it. You can imagine. And when we were still outside, this gentleman and his wife walked past with their dogs, and they were like, "Oh, it's not open until tomorrow." And we were like, "No, we know." And they said, "Well, what are you here for?" And then we obviously started saying, "Oh, we're here to do a paranormal investigation." And then the guy was like, "Oh, I don't believe in all of that." But he had so many stories.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, interesting." Yeah. And then the weirdest thing was that he was like, "The house next door is really haunted." And he knew the people who lived there. And he was like, "Oh, I'll go ask them." And he literally walked off to knock on the door. And Liam was like, "Michelle, go with him." I was like, okay. And then the guy knocked on the door and said, "Oh, these lot are next door doing a paranormal investigation." And he was like, just walked off. And I was like, "Okay, I'll just stand here and explain what we're doing, shall I?" I was so embarrassed. I was like, I really don't know what to say. But they did say their house was extremely haunted, but they were quite happy with the ghosts. So I was like, okay, well, I'll leave you to it then.
And how often do you hear that, though? When you talk to someone, they're like, "I don't believe in it, but there was this time," and then they tell you this wild story, and you're like, "How can you not believe it, man?"
Yeah, if that happened to me, I'd be like freaked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we meet people, they always have a story, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only person I know who hasn't said anything is my husband. And the day that he has an experience, I will know for a fact that the paranormal is definitely 100% real.
He's not experienced anything. That's wild.
Well, he says he hasn't, but who knows? He probably has, and he doesn't want to say.
Yeah. You do get people like that. Like, you do get people that I know. I've got family members that say they've woken up during the night and there's been someone standing there, and I'm like, well, that's a ghost, or that's a, and they're like, nah, it was just, and then they sort of explain it away in their mind. And then I'm not saying that they're wrong, it's their experience, but I do feel like some people, because you can't control the paranormal. That's the thing. Like you can't control. You don't know when it's going to happen. We don't fully understand it. We just don't. So we can't control it. And I think a lot of people, that's what they don't like. The fact that you're sort of, anything can happen at any time. I get it. That's why that's scary.
Yeah, but then I don't understand. In my head, I'm like, well, if you woke up and you saw someone in your room, it's got to be either someone you know, and if that person's sleeping next to you, that's not that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be a spirit, or it's a burglar. And if you didn't nick anything, you can take that.
Yeah.
The equation.
And a burglar might be the scariest one.
Yeah. I think sometimes I prefer a bag. Like, at
Yeah,
least you can like wallop them or something and tell them to like F off.
yeah, for
Off
sure.
you go.
So I had a thing recently. So I just finished. I don't know if I was editing or I just finished recording with someone, but it was like the early hours of the morning. And so when I'm recording, I'm upstairs in my little studio, and my dog has got a cage which is sort of just down the corridor a bit, but he sleeps in there during the night, and he's fine. Like, he's good as gold. He doesn't make any noise. He sleeps all through the night. He's better than any of the kids with sleeping. Like, he will sleep through the night as good as gold. Like, it's very rare that he makes a noise. Well, he's 2 now, so he's still young, but he's always been good in that sense. And so I just finished recording or whatever I was doing, and he's barking. He just started barking like crazy, and it was about 2-3 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, "Oh, what's this all about? This is not normal." So I've run outside and looked downstairs. Now I always leave the lights on downstairs anyway, because after after I do an interview, sometimes I'm a bit freaked out and I don't like to go out to a dark house. So I leave lights on, and I could hear someone walking around and moving stuff around like really loud, and the dog's still going mad. And I've checked the missus in bed, the kids are in bed, like everyone's asleep, like no one's downstairs. So I'm thinking, right, we've got an intruder. So I'm not thinking paranormal. I'm not thinking ghosts. I'm thinking we've got someone. What can I need a weapon. Like, I need to go down there and let's go. It's go time. So I can still hear whatever this, like, really loud. Like, it's not like little noises. It was like someone's walking around very brazen, picking stuff up. Like, so I'm thinking there could be a couple of dudes because they're not scared. You know, they're just walking. So I've got the dog out, and I'm like, Blue, let's go. Like, this is it. I'm freaking out massively. We run downstairs, and there's nothing there. There was no one there. No doors open, no windows open. And I was like, whoa, what was that? Just another weird thing that happens in my house.
I think I'd be like completely on edge if that happens to me.
Yeah. I was just thinking intruder, so that was more scary than like paranormal. But
I do worry sometimes that my head immediately goes to ghost. Like, I probably will get burglars one day. Touch wood, I don't, but I probably would. Like, you can imagine the scenario. They come in and I'm like, "Are you real?"
just touching them, just touching their face.
Like touching their face and, like, flicking their forehead.
I can feel you. Meanwhile, he's just got your telly under his arm.
Yeah, probably be like, she needs this telly more than we do. Like, she's lost it. Give her the telly back. Oh, how funny. Oh, yeah, that probably would actually happen to me. So, what got you? And I know that you're really into all things paranormal, but whenever I think of you, I always immediately associate you with like anything UFO related.
Yeah, that's
I think that's your little sweet spot, isn't it?
I do find it so interesting, and I have seen what I would say with UFOs, like 100%. I've seen weird stuff. I do say to people, like, if you look up in the sky like all the time, like, you're going to see some weird things that you can't explain. There might be a logical explanation sometimes, but there's so much weird stuff, and especially now, I think it's sort of, now you don't sound crazy when you tell people you've seen a UFO. Like, a few years ago, people were like, yeah, but now I think it's so out there, even in the mainstream. They talk about it in the mainstream news now that there's things that we don't know are out there. The military talk about it. So my first experience, I would say, was UFO. I was 14 years old, and we was playing football in the street. It was me and my brother and a few friends, and it was a beautiful summer's day. Blue sky, lovely day. I remember it like really clearly. And we stopped playing football because there was this thing in the sky, and we've all looked up. We're like, "What is that? Like, what?" It was so strange. It was like a building. This is how I explain it. It was like a building that you would see in Dubai, like a super futuristic sort of looking building. That's how it sort of looked, and it was just there. It wasn't moving. It wasn't spinning. It was just in the sky, just staying still, and it was like an orangey silver color. And we're all just watching it like, is it a balloon? Like, what is it? And we was watching it for ages, and it didn't fly off, it didn't disappear, it didn't move at all. And this bugs me, but we just sort of started playing football again. So we didn't see it fly off. You know, now if I saw that, I'd be watching it for years if I had to.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have the phone out, and we didn't have phones when I was. Well, we did, but it was like a Nokia. I don't know if you remember the Nokia bricks.
Can't really do much for those.
You can't take pictures. No, you could play Snake. That was it. And so that memory was there. So this is another strange part as well. So we had that. We saw that. Not that I forgot about it, but I just didn't really think, which is quite strange. I find this strange. Didn't really think about it that much. So when I started Let's Get Freaky, I sort of wrote down all the things that I've experienced throughout my life and the weird stuff that I've seen, and that wasn't on the list. And I was doing a podcast with Cat Ward. It was my first ever podcast, and we're talking about UFOs and things like that. And this memory just popped into my head. I was like, oh, I saw that weird thing in the sky that time. Let's talk about it. And I told her, and then my brother listened to the podcast the next day, and he rung me up, and he was like, bruv, what was that? I remember seeing that thing. What was it? And why do we never talk about it? And I was like, I know, but I'm so glad you're remembering it, that I wasn't just having a crazy, wild moment. He remembers seeing it as well. What it was, I don't know, but all I know is that it was very high up, and that's the best way I can describe it is that it was like a futuristic looking building. Like that was my first taste of a UFO.
Have you had any since?
I have. This was another strange one. So this was when I was in my probably about 26, 27 when this happened. So about 10 years ago. Me and my mother-in-law, we used to live in Brentwood in Essex, and we had a 4-story. We was on the 4th floor of flats, and we had like this little forested area opposite the flats. And this was a summer's day as well. So it was a lovely day, very clear sky. And me and my mother-in-law, so this is cool as well that she was with me, we was just talking and sort of looking out. And as we was talking, these 3 objects came out from the trees. And this is wild, but they were quite small. They were only like the size of like a football or a basketball or something like that. But there was 3 of them, and we could see them. They were quite close, like we could see them pretty clearly. And they were sort of moving around each other. They sort of seemed like they were connected, but they weren't touching. So they were sort of like going around in like this motion, and there was like 3 of them, and they were constantly changing shape. Like you couldn't put a shape on it because it was like constantly moving and changing. And they were like this silvery colour, like metal looking sort of colour. And me and my mother-in-law are watching it like, what the heck is that? Are they balloons again? Are they balloons? Like, what are they? And we're watching them, we got a good look, and they're going up and up and up, and they're constantly moving around each other. Like, constantly, but not actually touching, and they're just moving around and around and around. And we're watching them, and they got so high up, and then suddenly they went flash, 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 all 3 of them. And that was the moment we was like, that definitely wasn't balloons.
Yeah.
You know, because nothing moves like that. Nothing moves like that. And we were like, wow. Like, and I was just so glad that my mother-in-law was there as well. We both saw it. Again, what it was, I don't know. It's not like anything I've seen. But it's the way they shot off, which was like incredible, like as well. I mean, the whole thing was amazing, but the way they went, like all 3 of them, like it was wild. No, and when we're at family parties now, we talk about that all the time. So like we always bring up the UFOs, and you get the family members that look at you like, really? You saw that? Well, yeah, we saw that. We both saw that 100%. Yeah. The annoying thing is that I did have an iPhone in my pocket at the time, and I didn't think to get it out. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just so.
I don't think you do though.
No.
You're just in the moment, and you're just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I always watch like YouTube things, and I'm like, well, how did they have? And it's always a bit suspicious to me. Like, how did they have their phone out at that exact moment to capture that exact thing that they're seeing?
Yeah.
Like, I'm never that prepared for anything, but that's beside the point. But it's always like really suspicious suspicious. I mean, I know that when we do paranormal investigations, we're filming for like a very long time before anything sometimes happens.
Mhm.
And even when you play it back, you're usually watching something. I mean, there was like some weird light thing last night, and I'd filmed for like 30 minutes, and it was when I was watching it, it was like 11.30 in the video, and then I was like trying to go along to like show someone to make sure I wasn't like losing my mind.
Yeah.
And that's just a little snippet of like a 30-minute long thing. So
Mhm.
I never know how people are suddenly like, oh, I'll get my phone out. Because by the time you've done that, you've generally missed what's happened.
Yeah. Yeah, for
You know,
sure. Yeah.
it
Well,
always makes me a little bit suspicious.
yeah. Well, when you're seeing something amazing like a UFO or something like that, I don't think you're thinking, "Oh, I need to capture that." You're just like trying to work out what it is, And I
Or
don't.
going, take me with you.
Yeah, yeah. Let me come. But like, because a lot of the time with this sort of stuff, like you blink and it's gone, and then so you've got to keep your eye on it. There was a time. This was, I don't know if it was last summer or the summer before. We like going on the beach like late at night and having barbecues and stuff. And we was on the beach and there was this light in the sky. And where now like the family know that I am the crazy paranormal guy. So whenever there's a weird light or anything weird, I'm the first person like, Tommy, what's that? Like the amount of times people have sent me like the family have sent me like the Starlink. And they're like, Tom, what's this? What's this? I'm like, it's a Starlink, don't worry. But there was this weird light in the sky. Now I'm not saying that you see a lot of weird lights in the sky that could be anything, but it was just sort of sitting there. And we were watching it and the missus is like, that's probably a UFO. And I'm like, yeah, it could be. It's just like just a low down light. So I got my phone out to take a picture of it, and as I looked up, it was gone. I was like, oh no! So that's what I mean. Like this sort of stuff, like you've got to keep your eye on it. Like, it could be. And I'm not saying that was a UFO, but could be.
Could have been. What do you think about all these Jersey UFO sightings then?
What the drones?
Yeah.
Well, they've come out now and said that apparently, because obviously since Trump has come in, he said he was gonna tell people what it was. Apparently they always knew, but they didn't want to say. And he's saying now that it's technology that they've got, that the military have got. Apparently that's what he said. And they were doing like tests and stuff. I don't know. That sounds a bit strange.
The size of the like SUVs though.
Yeah,
an American SUV for an American to say that's pretty big.
For sure, yeah. I mean, there was apparently people getting on the bandwagon and sort of putting their drones up and stuff, which people are going to do that. But as you say, like those size, you can't buy drones like that. I don't think you can. Anyway, I'm sure you can if you've got the money, but most people can't just buy like a car-sized drone. So I think
the normal one's like quite expensive anyway, isn't it? So
yeah.
One that size, that'd be a credit card job.
Yeah, just save for that one, paying stages. Yeah. But there's a lot of strange stuff. Like whenever the government start talking about UFOs, I always go, I'm a bit of a conspiracy guy as well. I just don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore. I know there is something going on, but what it is, I don't know.
Will we ever know?
I don't think we will. I hope we do. I mean, it gives us something to talk about, but
I don't know. I think I'd be quite disappointed. If someone said, "Right, look, this is what it is," I think I'd be like, "Well, now I've got nothing to like look forward to." I mean, like when you're a kid and you find out, certain things aren't real. Might ruin it for everyone. And you're just like, oh, okay, well, that ruined that. So what do we do now?
Kills the dream. Yeah. But I think with a lot of these UFOs, I think there are, like with the paranormal, like with ghosts, like with cryptids, with UFOs, I think they're all real. I think everyone's experiences are real. Obviously, some people may lie and stuff like that, but it's all real, and they're all so. Some UFOs might be from here. They might be. Some UFOs might be from a galaxy far, far away. Some might be interdimensional. which I think is the same for ghost cryptids and all of this stuff. I think there are. So that's why I don't think you can pinpoint. Like in the Bigfoot community, you get people that argue about flesh and blood versus like a supernatural element to these things. I think they could be both. I think they could be different versions. They're quite similar, but there could be like different versions of these things. You know, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does make sense. Well, it makes sense to me. I don't know about anyone. What?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I think the same. Like, I think we're all moving at a different. Like, I know when you get older, like time feels so different, doesn't it? Like when you're a kid. And I think I've said this to you before. Like, I don't think time has never really made sense to me. Like, even when I was little, I didn't really understand the concept of being told that. And this isn't just my ADHD, you know, I don't like being told what to do concept. It's my I just didn't understand why time was an actual thing. Like, why did you have to be told to be somewhere at certain times? Why do you have to look at a clock to know where you need to be? You know, I was more like, just turn up.
Yeah.
But I think we are and I think I've experienced this when I go to places on these investigations, where you understand the things that are just like memories, where people are just floating through doing about what they did while they were there. And then you've got ones that are, you know, there for a purpose, or ones that don't understand they're dead because they're still just living as they did when they were alive, and they don't understand why this bunch of strangers are in their house, and you know all of that. I think time is. I don't know the exact words for it. Like, it's different, like dimensions and stuff. It's all happening at a different time. Like, I could be experiencing something in this time, this moment, and somebody else could be experiencing something similar in a different time, and you know all of that.
Yeah, for sure. No,
I didn't
but
explain that very
yeah,
well.
no, I get you. I get you. When you when you talk to people that have had like near death experiences, I've talked to a few people now that have died and come back to life. And the weird thing that their experiences are always very similar, and a lot of the time they say the same thing: is that time is like irrelevant, like time is gone.
Yeah.
And so in it does seem that in the whatever the other world is, whatever the spirit world is, that time is irrelevant, and like it's I don't know, it's hard to imagine, but
It is very hard. It's hard to explain as well. There's going to be quantum physicists out there being like, she's got it all wrong. I'll be like,
no, we're right. We're right.
I feel as though I'm right. And that's Have you actually ever been on a paranormal investigation yourself?
Not a proper one. No. I've been to a lot of haunted locations. I would love to. 100%. I would love to. And especially this year, I think it's something I want to start doing. I've never been on an investigation where you take the equipment out and you're filming it all and stuff. I'd love to do that. I do think that is something I would like to do.
I think you should.
Yeah.
Even if it's just one.
Yeah.
I think you have to experience it.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere like really intense to start with. You know, don't turn up at 30 East Drive and be like, "Hey, I'm here to waste my time." Imagine.
I'd love to go there though. I would love to. Like, I would.
Yeah, I bailed. Well, I was busy, but I also didn't particularly want to go, so it just happened to coincide nicely. And I was like, no, not this year. I was watching the rest of them on there. I was like, oh, I really wish I was there.
Yeah.
But I have said that I will go next year. So we're booked to go next year.
That's cool.
And I feel like that house that's like a level up here. And at the moment I'm kind of like here-ish.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only been doing paranormal investigations since what? June last year?
Oh wow, okay. Yeah.
I'm only a baby investigator.
Yeah. No, it's good. Cool.
Next year, that's fine.
Let's go. That is something I'd like to do. I think this year going forward, I'd like to start going to more locations and investigating.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you a good one. Well, you're not in Essex anymore, are you?
I'm not.
Have you been to Hatch? The secret bunker.
I do. Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, you should take a little day trip there. That's a nice place. I mean, you'd really like that.
I got a feeling. So, what was the name of it again? I feel like I've been there.
I think it's called Kelvedon Hatch. You turn up and it's like a little bungalow. And it's like just a little like cottage in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you like go in and then you suddenly go down this really long corridor and then you take a turn and then you're suddenly like into the underground bunker.
I have been there. I went there when I was really little with my granddad, a long time ago.
Yeah. I to be honest, I would probably never go back to that place.
Really?
Yeah, it was
What
awful.
happened?
Well, so we went there with a bunch of children because it was when I was a youth worker. And we thought it'd be a really good educational thing to take a load of military children to an underground bunker because we thought they'd probably be interested in that kind of thing. We had to hit certain quotas of, making some trips educational and not all of them being like fun. There's only so many water parks you can go to apparently, but
Especially in the UK.
and the one day that it's sunny.
Yeah.
So we took them along, and the minute when I got there, something told me to put my barriers up, and I was like, right, okay. So I had a little chat with the people that I do, and I was like, right, okay, just keep me safe, keep everyone else safe, etc., etc. So I walked in, and the minute I turned and walked down saw this really long corridor. I was like, oh god. I just had this sense, and I was like, ugh. So I carried on walking, and as you turn, you hit the armory bit, I think it was. And we were stood there, and we were looking at all the weapons that they had there and stuff. And I felt this really cold breeze crawl in front of my legs, just by where my knees were. And you could feel when a dog walks past you, it's kind of a four-legged It was a little bit like that, and I was like, ugh. And I must have made that noise out loud because the other youth worker next to me, she turned, she went, "You're right," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." So I carried on walking around, and I mean, it is horrible because they've got loads of dark corners and stuff, and obviously mannequins and things, which I hate those kind of things anyway. So especially when you're on edge. And we got to this one point, and I think it used to be like an engine room or something. It was just before you went into the medical bit. And we were all stood there just gathering, doing a little head count thing to make sure we hadn't left any stragglers anywhere. And just before we went through to the other bit, I heard this really loud growl. And a bunch of the other kids, and it was probably about 50% of them were and I was like, did you all hear that? And someone yeah, it sounded like a growl. And Dove was like, oh, I didn't hear anything. And I was like, okay, not just me then. Right, fine. I was like, a growl is not a good thing to hear. So we carried on walking, and we went through the medical bit, and then you go through these dormitories, and there's a dormitory where you can actually stay overnight and do a paranormal investigation there. And there's a doorway, and then another dormitory, and luckily it's just before the gift shop, and you can get out. Because at this point I was probably done. So we walked through, and I was like, "This is horrible. I really hate this place. I want to get out as soon as possible, but I have to remain calm because there's a load of children here who are probably going to be scared anyway." And we got to this doorway, and I had the worst headache just suddenly come on, and I felt really sick, and I thought I was going to throw up. I was like, when you do that thing in your mouth, you're like,
yeah.
And my colleague was like, "You look really ill. Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah." I just went out, and we got out, and I was like, "Thank God we're out of there." And I did my little thing, "Thank you, nobody follow me home. Stay where you are." Blah blah blah. Which I always do because I don't need stragglers. And when I think it was a couple of weeks later, I used to get that magazine. I can't remember what it's called, but it used to be a haunted magazine, a Fate and Fortune type thing. And I got it and opened it, and the middle spread was about Kelvedon Hatch, and it said exactly the same thing, that people had heard growls, people had got sick in that doorway. There was even a picture of someone who'd taken a picture of that doorway, and there was a shadow figure in the doorway. And I was like, okay, that's a bit of a weird coincidence, and I clearly wasn't imagining it. That place was awful. But you had that constant dread, sense of dread, and constant And I thought maybe it's because I know I'm underground and I don't like being like claustrophobic. But it's a big place. It's not like I was in little narrow spaces, and you just felt like really oppressed, really like just awful. But apparently, in that article, they were saying that when that was built, they'd dug up a load of ground and found like bodies and stuff, and it had been like a burial ground type situation, and they'd really like disregarded the bodies as in like, oh well, never mind kind of thing. And
Wow, I
there's
didn't
a
know
lot of
that.
energy that will be attached to that.
Yeah.
So you should go
Wow.
have a visit now as an adult and see what you
I'm
think.
going to go back. I'm going to go back.
Let me
Wow.
know
Yeah.
when you get
That
on.
wasn't too far from where I used to live, so I'm going to go back.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I've been there before when I was really little. I don't remember any paranormal, but I probably was scared.
Yeah, I would be. Yeah. Right. So we are now gonna finish off with a quick fire round. Are
Okay,
you ready?
let's go.
What is the creepiest location that you've visited?
Oh, creepiest location. Let me think.
Oh, you've got to be quick fire. Remember.
I'm so sorry. I'll say, creepiest location. Oh, oh. I'm
Probably
so
that
sorry.
wood.
I'm not getting the quick fire concept, am I? I've been to a lot. I'll say Corfe Castle because it's close to me and it's quite creepy, but that's not the creepiest place. But I'm sorry.
We'll let you off. This one's going to be an easy, quick one.
I've got to be quick. Okay.
This one will be easy for you. Alien, yes or no?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I thought so. Best horror movie of all time?
Oh, best horror movie. Oh, another great question. I'll say The Exorcist, but I'm sure there's another one there. But that freaked me out big time. Oh no, sorry, The Shining. That's my favourite one.
I watched that recently for the first time, and
Really?
I was like, I've experienced it, but I don't really get it, and I don't. I'm a massive Stephen King fan as well.
Yeah.
And
well, he didn't like it apparently. He didn't like the film.
I can get why. I've got the book. I love all his books. Like Pet Sematary is my favourite book.
Yeah.
I love it. Watched the movie and I was like, what a load of...
Really? I think because I watched it quite young when I shouldn't have watched it, and it freaked me out massively. And those twins in the hallway, man, freaks me out. Yeah. I also watched Chucky when I was 4. Big mistake. Apparently my granddad didn't realise it was a horror movie and let me watch it. Explains a lot. That's all I'll say.
Moving on. One conspiracy theory you secretly believe in?
Oh, I believe in a lot of them, to be honest. One secret. I believe that there is like a higher government that is really in control. I don't know what they are, but I believe that the politicians we see are like puppets, and they're not really in control. They're like for show. That's just one of many conspiracies that I have.
We'll have to do another episode one day.
Let's go.
Yeah. Worst paranormal cliche.
Oh.
I put you on the spot now, haven't I?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Because I love them.
I did warn Tommy that these questions were coming.
Yeah.
But I did warn him they were coming.
I am terrible at fast answer questions. Paranormal cliche. It's not a cliche. I'm not the biggest fan of cat balls. Can I say that?
Yeah.
I'm interested, but I think sometimes vibrations can set things off.
Yeah.
And that's just I'm not having a go at cat ball lovers. I think it's cool.
Cat ball.
That's not really a cliche either, but I'm sorry. I'm not good at this.
Bigfoot or Nessie, which is more likely to exist?
Oh, Bigfoot. As much I love Nessie as well, and I do believe that there's something out there.
Yeah.
I think so many people have seen things, and with Nessie as well, I believe that there's more of them around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bigfoot, but I think Bigfoot, so many people see them. There's a lot of evidence to support it as well.
Yeah.
I'm going Bigfoot.
Yeah. What was your favourite ghost story as a kid?
Favourite ghost story as a kid? Scrooge.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that's a good one. If you could spend the night at any haunted location in the world, where would it be?
Oh, any haunted location in the world. Again, I'm sorry. I'll say Waverly Hills.
Yep.
Because a lot of people I've spoke to have said that that's wild and had a lot of experiences there. So
Yeah.
I'll say that one. But there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I'm sure I'm going to think of another one in a minute where I'm like, should have said that.
What's the other one? Was it Trans Allegheny or something like that?
Yeah, there's so many. There's so many cool locations.
I'd love to do them all. I love my life doing it. Okay, now this one. Describe the paranormal in one word.
Fascinating.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, now this is the final question that we will end on, and our listeners will hopefully have some words of wisdom from Tommy Cullum.
Oh.
Brace yourself, people.
Hopefully.
If you could send one message to the spirit world and they could hear it, what would you say?
Oh, that's a great question. If I could send one message to the spirit world and they could hear it. I would say, I don't know if I should say this, but show us more. And I don't know if I should say that. I may regret saying that.
Yeah, maybe in your house. Yeah. I'll send you some Santos, some sage, and then
I might regret that one.
Yeah, it's a good one though. Yeah.
Show us more.
When I read that question, I was kind of thinking that's probably something I'd say. Yeah. Oh, you really there?
Yeah. Gonna regret that one.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Anytime. I loved it. Thank you.
An honour. And I think we will probably, no doubt, have some other conversations moving forward from this one.
100%. Anytime. Government, Bigfoot, everything.
Exactly. So thank you. I will drop all your descriptions and links in the bio so people can come check you out. But just for the people that are listening, where can they find you? So
we are Let's Get Freaky Podcast. Wherever you find your podcast, you can find us there. We're also on YouTube as well if you want to watch the episodes. A lot of the episodes now also go on YouTube. So yeah, Let's Get Freaky. Tommy Cullum's Let's Get Freaky Podcast. Love it. It's amazing. And I was on there as well. So you can awesome episode. Link that as well in here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tommy, for being my first guest. It's an honour. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown on Shell's After Dark archives. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story that sends chills down your spine. I'd love to hear about your own paranormal experiences, so drop a comment or send me a message. Your story might even be featured in a future episode, and if you're loving the show, please leave a like and share it with your fellow seekers of the supernatural. For those who want even more exclusive content, behind-the-scenes insights, and bonus episodes, join the membership. You'll find the link in the description below. Your support keeps the lights off and the stories coming. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and keep exploring the shadows. See you in the archives. After Dark.